Ready? We'll go ahead and call the Ellis County Public Building Commission meeting to order. Donna, please call the roll.
Commissioner Butch-Flyer.
Present.
Chair Dean Hazelhorse.
Here.
Commissioner Destin Roth.
Present.
Chair, you have a quorum present.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda this evening? No executive sessions, I believe? No? Approval of prior minutes, April 8th, 2019.
No issues.
Look fine. Yeah.
Approved as presented. Consider of accounts payable. We have none this evening, I believe. Project manager? None. Project manager report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Capital Project Manager Philip Smith-Haynes. Don't really have anything to report this evening. As you know, our projects are done. I will say the audit is in progress for the PBC, so I'm hopeful at your August meeting we will have the audit presentation from Adams, Brown, Barron, and Ball. That's all I had this evening.
Thank you. No other business. We will adjourn at 5:01. Ready again? Mike, ready again? We'll go ahead and call the Ellis County Commission meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Donna, please note that my fellow commissioners didn't leave the chambers. Order of business this evening, I believe we have one executive session, Mr. Jeter?
That's correct.
By the way, thank you all for coming. What a great turnout. You all should come to every meeting and we'd have this turnout. And Neil does. and he brought the boss with him. Prior minutes, March 29th, 2019 budget meeting, April 3rd, 2019 budget meeting, and June 3rd, 2019.
No issues.
Look fine.
Okay? With all of Phil's corrections in there, stand
Yep.
approved as presented. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through G.
I'd make a motion we approve consent agenda items A through G as presented.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second, Donna. Further discussion? None. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Issues from persons not on the order of business this evening. Do we have anyone? I can't imagine what all you people are waiting for here. So it's a great turnout. Monthly financial report. Did everyone have a chance to review?
Reviewed it.
Yeah.
Yes? Any questions?
No.
None.
Okay. Next item is budget requests from outside agencies. First person we'll call on is our County Administrator, Philip Smith-Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening is your annual opportunity to hear from many of the agencies that request a budget allocation from the county on an annual basis. I have attached a spreadsheet for the commission showing both 2019 funding and 2020 requests. There are a couple of agencies that did not get back to us, so they are blank in that request column. I'm not sure if they're here this evening or not. I haven't seen them, so we'll see if they show up to request anything. But otherwise, we will proceed through generally in the order of funding. But we've had a request from the Historical Society for them to go first because they have another engagement. So be
That's
happy
fine.
to answer any questions before we get started.
I have none, Phil, from our prior meeting. Guys, no?
No question.
Okay. Phil's done. First item, Ellis County Historical Society.
May I pass some photos to the commission?
Yes?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Lee Dobratz, and I'm the director at the Ellis County Historical Society. The Historical Society became an official entity here in the winter of 1971. In 1974, the Society acquired our building at 7th and Main I typed 1974 twice to make sure you understood it. How good for me. The parts of the building were constructed in 1897, 1913, and 1922. We have done what we could over the years, both financially and physically, to extend the life of our building. We currently face structural problems that are becoming serious. In the handout I just provided is an image of the most recent damage. This was discovered 9 days ago. It was caused by repeated water intrusion into the building, which was happening before I came on board in 2016. And in research that I did, I was not made aware of any way that we could stop it. Due to the expected storms within 36 hours of the discovery, I organized volunteers to move collections that were most in danger from incoming water. Our only available location to receive the collections was in our stone church. The stone church is rather full of collections now, even though the 2 rooms that we evacuated contain a very small percentage of our entire collection. So it's a very good visual to see how great our collections actually are. In addition to holding and exhibiting collections, we house, organize, and share a large archive collection. We have original documents like deed ledgers from the late 1800s and early 1900s, records of early court cases and decisions, digital copies of interviews with local people, thousands of photos and negatives, and information gathered on various historical subjects that pertain to Ellis County. Our staff of 4 provides informative tours of our grounds, researches and delivers information requests from across the nation and abroad, designs new exhibits, and cares for all of the collections. We currently face 2 large obstacles. Our building is becoming direly in need of replacement, and our funding continues to lower. Just a few years ago, we were allocated about $120,000 per year from the county. Our funding for 2019 is right at $96,700. When I took over in 2016, thrifty spending was not as common as it is now. I immediately cut expenses until I better understood the needs of our organization. By the time I helped create the budget proposed here for 2020, I have cut line items to the bare minimum that it takes to stay open. Our fixed costs of utility and maintenance, insurance, and off-site rental are rising, mostly due to an emergency repairs needed to the structures we possess. I know that everyone presenting here tonight will receive allocation cuts, and that these are difficult decisions for the commissioners. I most want you to know that there is no fat left to cut at the Historical Society. My only option at this point is to let an employee go, all 3 of whom already make low wages and only work part-time. It will be difficult to keep the Historical Society open with only 3 employees. As you consider funding, please remember that we are a unique entity in our county, the only one whose sole purpose is to collect, maintain, and share the diverse history of our county. I and our communities would hate to see the service lost. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much for being here. Any questions, commissioners?
Yeah, when I went through your paperwork, Lee, this really troubled me because it seems like you say you have 3 part-time staff, you're barely keeping the doors open now.
Yes.
You have a building that's in dire disrepair.
Yes, sir.
You could say it's fallen down around you. And yet you say your expenses of maintenance of the building keep going up year after year. I guess even if we funded you fully, where would you hope to be in 5 years?
Well, as you probably know, we have been working on a feasibility study for a new building, which probably seems contrary to the funding position that we're currently in. But we are most looking at a way to maintain our collections. We house many of our things in the brick church, which is the one that hole in the wall came from. It's on the 3rd floor. So in order to maintain the collections, we need new housing that's up to museum standards and preferably doesn't have a leak in the roof. So we're investigating that, and while we're investigating that, we're trying to, well, we're not trying to figure out, but we're going to be fundraising for an endowment account also. That's the way that museums generally run, successful museums run. And that's not something that has really been sought before. And so this is going to be new for our institution. But we feel that it's a great time to do both so that we can invest in this new wonderful place that will do everything we need it to do and have the money to run it well and maintain it for the foreseeable future.
Okay, you said if we cut any funding, you'll have to probably lay off some personnel.
Yes, sir.
I would like to remind you and every other person in this room, we already, with our budget we're working on, we haven't funded a position for the Ellis County Attorney. We have a vacancy in the Ellis County Health Department we haven't filled. We have a merged directorship of Ellis County Health Department and EMS. We've eliminated an EMS position, the Assistant Director. We have a vacant position in Public Works for a truck driver as well as an equipment operator. Our Register of Deeds and County Clerk said the only way they can meet budget is by reducing staff hours. We've eliminated a three-quarter time position in the appraiser's office. So if you have to eliminate positions, so be it. I guess I'm not going to be heartfelt for that at this point in time. Our staff in Ellis County could be looking at some real dire hardships come next year.
I understand, sir.
Thank you, Butch. Dustin?
Lee, how many visitors do you get a year at the Historical Society?
At this time, around 2,500. Our numbers have been going back up. They were lower than that when I started. We've been increasing school groups and special tours to drum up interest and let everyone know what we're capable of.
And that would be what your earned income item is here, the $5,200. Is that
For
from people
admissions?
paying for admissions?
That would be admissions, yes, sir.
Okay. So approximately a couple dollars is what it costs to get into the museum.
Well, it varies because we have school groups that we charge $1, and then, then there's full price admissions, so it averages to a lower amount, yes.
Okay. And you said you're working on an endowment account. I kind of wondered how much you had in private funding. I'd imagine there are people that have an interest in wanting to preserve Ellis County's history. How is that coming along? Is it
We've just finished the feasibility study for the building. We have a few more facts to gather, and then we'll launch those concurrently. We're going to be seeking grant funding to help with the construction of the building so that hopefully we can access funds locally to go towards that endowment account.
okay? That's all from me.
Thanks, Dustin. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, gentlemen.
High Plains Mental Health.
Good evening. I'm Walt Hill. I'm the Executive Director of High Plains Mental Health Center. We appreciate the time to visit this evening and to present our funding request as one of the 20 counties that is a member of the interlocal agreement that establishes High Plains Mental Health Center. With me this evening are Kaylee Connor, Joanne Wilhelm on staff, Roy Husted, who is a board member who does live here in Ellis County, and Tom Dries, who is alternate board member to High Plains. Our funding request is summarized in this one-page document that was contained in your agenda packet. We are requesting $280,305 in funding for 2020. This is a slight decrease over this current year's funding. These funding requests to all of the counties are based on a funding formula that uses 6 factors: population, valuation, the salaries paid to individuals in the county, whether we have a main office, and will vary from year to year based on those 6 factors. The total county funding in aggregate from all the counties is not increased. This is not a time when we are looking at increasing county funding from any of our counties, given all of the various factors that are weighing on us and our communities, the ag issues, oil valuation, and so the Ellis County share is at $280,000. In part, that comes from the calculation that's based on 2,119 Ellis County residents receiving services, medical services, mental health services from us last year. That represents 34% of our total patients that we see from the 20 counties. We had a payroll of $3.9 million to Ellis County residents. That's about 70% of our total payroll is returned here in Ellis County to individuals who live in Ellis County. Net payroll in total is $5.6 million across all the counties. I think last week I mentioned we provided $28,000 in services to residents of the jail, who we provide with services without regard to any billing to the counties. Some mental health centers bill counties. We're part of you, and that's, this is just part of our mission. High Plains provides important services. Every organization tonight has important things to tell you. I think what I want to highlight is that our focus is on life-saving and life-sustaining services. People who have serious mental illness, depression, anxiety, other problems in life, not to discount anything that any other agency provides, but in looking at life-sustaining versus life-enhancing, we see that the medical services that we provide are important to save lives, reduce costs, reduce other impacts in the county, unemployment, workforce issues, jail time, time spent by law enforcement, and even other county departments. For example, we expanded this year into a one-day-a-week office at the Ellis County Health Department to see patients there, to coordinate services. By the way, we pay rent because the federal government says we have to pay rent since you are another health entity. But it's really about improving services in a co-located, integrated fashion that some people will be more comfortable to be seen in that setting. We also have expanded into a similar setting at Hayes Family Medicine, where we send a therapist who sees patients there next to the patient's doctor's offices. They can hand them off. Often, some people are more comfortable being seen in that kind of setting. I'm going to stop at that point. I'll be glad to answer any questions. We appreciate your support, your membership in the interlocal agreement that establishes us under the statutory authority that establishes mental health centers in Kansas.
Well, I think you're doing a great job in the county and the jail and the service you provide in Northwest Kansas, so appreciate everything you do for us. Dustin, any questions?
The only question I had, Walt, was what's your total budget in a year? I know you obviously get bill some patients and some you can't.
Right.
What kind of budget do you guys run?
It runs right under $10 million. Last year we had about a $180,000 margin on that $10 million budget. So we're, after you replace equipment and all, we're running pretty lean at this point. But yeah, county funding represents 6 to 8% of our total revenues. State funding is 30 to 50%, patient revenues. Medicaid's the largest payer, 75% of our patient service revenue. And over the years, we have shifted away from governmental sources of funding to patient individual responsibility, Medicaid billings, Blue Cross billings, other health insurance billings. It's about 50-50 match or mix.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'll echo what Dean said. You guys are doing a great job. I really appreciate all the work that you put in, and obviously we had a discussion last week about what's going on with our agricultural sector, and so it's definitely appreciated the hard work you guys put in there.
Thank you.
That's all from me.
Butch, anything?
Just a comment, Walt, and to all the other people out here, I don't want to trivialize any of the services provided in Ellis County by these agencies, yet some are different than others. When you talk about life-saving and life-sustaining, that's more of a humanistic type service than some others on the list, and they carry probably a little more weight.
Everything has value. It's just the priority that our community as a whole is important.
Absolutely.
Please. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Best of wishes in your budgeting process. We do have emergency response teams during your budgeting process. If you need, we would be glad to send them out.
You have a flyer on that.
Just critical incident. Just call us and we'll be there.
Promise this
We're
is
here
water.
for you. So, thank you.
Thanks for delivering that. Next item, Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas, Jerry Michaud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jerry Michaud. Jerry Michaud, I'm President CEO for Developmental Services. Been at Developmental Services for 27 years and since 2005 in this position. I brought along case histories. I think in the interest of time, I brought them for your viewing, but I'm glad to share those. If you want those, I will do that. You know, it's very important. I certainly can appreciate the budgetary challenges that the county is facing. We serve the 18 counties of Northwest Kansas, and from the impact that we have it is really about people and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I think most all are familiar with that. Just some quick update and overview of who we are and what we do. I think all know that we're a 501c3, a nonprofit organization with a long-standing history with our counties. Our primary source of revenue is Medicaid. It's very important to know that we do not set the rates for our services. They are provided through the legislative process. And our request to counties is to fill gap when the federal and state portions do not cover the cost of service. We just in the last couple of years saw slight bumps in our rate structure through the legislative process. Important to note that it was nearly a decade before any of those adjustments took place. Cost of providing supports it's present whether we control the revenues that cover those cost increases. We have right now a wait list for people that are in services. It's over 4,000 statewide. In our region, it's about 107, I believe, that number. And their average wait is 8+ years. That's a long time for families to wait. Our average turnover rate is 39%. We have 27 positions that are currently open. We all know the unemployment rate is kind of at the bottom. I think our average for the region is 2.8, with some lows in the, I think, 2.5 in a couple of our counties. Our average starting wage for our direct support staff is $9 an hour. With the latest rate increases, that's where we moved it to. It used to be lower than that at $8.82 an hour. We serve 551 individuals in our 18-county region. Our funding is a complicated, I call it a mess, but it's so complicated. In terms of Medicaid, it's a state and federal partnership. What the state appropriates, the federal matches currently. That's the way that works. Then it flows into a managed care model through insurance companies. And an important factor with waiting list, I mentioned that number. When we have individuals that pass away in the course of a year, their revenues don't remain with us so we can serve the next person on the waiting list. It doesn't work that way. The resources revert back to the state, which creates a vacuum on the revenue side. So with rate increases and the net loss of vacating revenues, we're kind of left really below the mark of where we need to be just to maintain. I offer as a perspective, I believe you probably all know this, but when you provide 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week services, just a minimum wage perspective covering every hour of every day, just with minimum, no other, fringe, taxes, anything like that. You're at $63,000 for one person served. That's why the numbers look so large. The lion's share of our support comes through federal and state sources, but the local county support really is what helps and sustains. The services that we provide, I would characterize as the essential services for people. Some folks need 24/7 supports, hand-over-hand feeding, bathing, toileting, you name it. Other people can manage with fewer supports, and we match our supports to that person's need. That's how that works. What you have in your packet is our annual accountability sheet back to the county, and it's the blue sheet. And you'll see on that sheet the services that are provided, the location where those individuals are served, and through the federal and state pieces of funding, the local funding need is the difference between for those individual services and the individuals from this county. We have 165 FTEs, individuals. There's, that's a full-time equivalent. The cost of service was $4,656,051, and the amount of federal and state funds was less than that by $480,073 and some change. Our request for the county is $240,000, and we know the circumstances of the county and the budget. I absolutely understand that completely. Our request would be to hold the line if at all possible. That would be our request. Our impact sheet on the economy, for whatever it's worth, the expenditures for staff salaries all the way down through the spending, it's over $7 million tied with Ellis County. That is a good thing for our county. Some individual statistics, individuals served. We have about 189 individuals from the county. That represents about 34% of the people we serve. We have 222 employees. We were ranked, according to a website this morning when I looked, the number 9th employer here in Ellis County. And the number of businesses and individuals in employment, we have 65 individuals in placement, work crews, we have 27 individuals there. But the number of businesses total for our region, 67. 37 of those businesses are right here in Ellis County that provide the employment opportunities for people we serve. So our mission with the federal policies and state policies that affect our funding, that comes down through to the community system that we operate today. This system today is very different than what the historic system was, which was an institution-based support. That cost of institutional support is about 3 to 4 times what it cost to serve people in the community. Okay? For fear that I'm running long-winded here, our impact, it's people. I don't know how else to say that. It's about people. I feel the hardship here. I ask for every bit of support that the county can provide so that we can provide the supports to the people. And I would stand for questions. There's a whole lot more I could talk about, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, Jerry, again, I think your organization does a great job in our county and Northwest Kansas, and I know you employ a lot of people through different parts of the county and surrounding counties, so thank you for your service you provide to us.
Thank you.
Butch, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple here, Jerry. For many years, I provided services to the DSNWK consumers, a variety of services, both in-house and outreach. And I also served on the Consumer Rights Advisory Board for several years. Do you guys still have the farmhouses?
Yes, we do.
Was there 2 of them?
Yes, we do.
Okay, and you still operate those 2?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Yeah, that's about all the questions I have for you there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Dustin, anything?
Just a couple from me too. You said you have 27 open positions. That's employment positions that you're trying to fill?
Those would be our staff.
Okay.
I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but with our wages where they are, that presents a real challenge.
Yeah, I'd imagine. It seems like that seems to be the case all around here. I think that's a multi-tiered issue that we're dealing with housing and people and all kinds of things. It's obviously not very easy to get a job at $9 an hour, even with some benefits, and be able to afford rent or housing in Ellis County, that, or at least in Hayes, is very difficult. And then you said a wait list of 8+ years that some people wait to get services from you, huh?
Yeah, the legislature appropriated new funds that affected both the intellectual and developmental disability waiver, that's the one we work with, as well as the physical disability waiver. They're bringing 107 people off the wait list. The wait list is 4,000 plus. It's a mark and it's a movement in the right direction for those 7 people, but I believe it was April of 2011 is the request date for the one person from Northwest Kansas that's coming off of those 107.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, once again, I'll reiterate, you guys are taking care of some of the most vulnerable people in our county, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate that and how selfless a lot of that work is. I imagine there's not a whole lot of everyday high fives for all the work that you do, so we're going to do our best to give you what we can out of this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being here, Jerry.
Okay, very good. I just add one more thought, that we're trying to do our part too. Maybe saw that we're in a capital campaign. We're looking at alternative ways of funding through estate gifts, those kinds of things. That's not a promotion. That's just it's just a fact that we're looking for other ways to bring in resources to meet and fulfill our mission. So.
We'll definitely promote, because I know that this is DSNWK is one of the very hot button issues for tonight, and people people are affected all over Ellis County by the people that you serve and what the help that they need. So the idea that they can give of their own free will is really important, I'm sure, to your agency. So
Yes, very good. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Hayes Area Children's Center.
Bring that down a little bit. Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Gotcha.
I'm Jennifer O'Borney with Hayes Area Children's Center. I'm the new Part C coordinator, just took over this position, so I'm excited about getting to know you guys. Let me tell you a little bit about the infant toddler Part C services. We provide direct services for babies and toddlers to age 3 that have developmental delays and or special health conditions. We offer occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech services, early childhood special education, family service coordination, and we've also been recently working with KU Med Center, evaluating and helping diagnose children earlier before age 3 with autism. So that's been a really key thing we've been working on this year also. Our caseload has increased this year. We've completed 106 evaluations, and we've completed 87 screenings for birth to age 5. We offer monthly screenings every month in the community for children that are free, for parents or doctors to make referrals for families to come and see if they might need an evaluation for services. I also have a impact statement from one of my families that they'd made a short little video that I could audio play if you guys would be interested in hearing. It's about a minute. If you would be interested in hearing that, that would be wonderful. I have a wonderful family that we're working with. Okay.
As a mother,
Wait a second.
hi, I'm
Oh, wait, come back. Give me a second. Okay.
I'm Susanna Panino, and this is our baby boy, Maxon. He was born last July here in Hayes. We live here in Hayes. He's our 3rd child. And last year when he was born, he had to be resuscitated and sent to Wesley NICU for 1 week. Needless to say, it rocked our lives, and he had a lot of health issues for the first 5 months of his life. And now he's healthy as can be, thanks to the amazing team at Hayes Area Children's Center Infant and Toddler Services. They came to our house starting at 1 month of age and provided tons of services, physical therapy, special education, and the RN. They helped with breastfeeding, hearing tests, range of motion, helping us with feeding, hitting developmental milestones, and it's really made a difference in my family's life, and I don't know where we would be if it wasn't for them. So this is my support as a patient, as a mother of the Hayes Area Children's Center Infant and Toddler Services. I highly recommend them. Thank you for funding them in the past, because if you didn't, last year my little boy probably would not have got services, and I don't know where we would be. So I highly recommend that you continue to fund them, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the Infant Toddler Service team, and thank you to the commissioners for funding this amazing program for Ellis County's future leaders. Thank you.
A nice impact that we have from our families. It's been a wonderful family to work with. And the other thing too, our services, we provide all services for free in the family's home. Even if federally we provide federal law, we're required to provide services no matter what. So if we have 80 kids on our caseload, we're serving every single one of them. So yeah.
Would you like to introduce your guest that's with you?
Yes, I would. This is Beth Fisher. She's our family service coordinator and a registered nurse on our team.
Welcome, Beth.
We appreciate every dollar that you have given to our program in the past, and hopefully we'll be working on that relationship again in the future. The goal of early intervention is to provide services as early as possible, and by putting that money in at an earlier age, we see an impact later because we're not needing services in the future. So we're actually saving money in the future. So investing in early childhood really does bring you a return on your investment. And just really want to thank you guys for taking your time out to listen to all these wonderful agencies, because they all make a huge impact on our local community, and you definitely have a huge decision to make on where you're wanting to allocate your dollars for this next year. Do you have any questions specifically for me?
I don't.
I want to say, Jennifer has taken this position over just this month, so she's doing well, but we didn't have anything. She didn't have anything to do with the budget or anything, so we didn't come prepared with that. So if we have questions, we'd be glad to answer them about that at any time.
Thank you. Commissioners?
This one is one that was hard to hear as a guy with a wife who's 8.5 months pregnant. But my wife actually serves on the board for the Hayes Area Children's Center, and she's an instructor at Fort Hays State University for early childhood and special education. So I get this at home all the time about the change that they see in kids and stuff like this. So this isn't a hard one for me to pull at the heartstrings. But a couple questions I had: how many people are employed directly because of this, or is it back and forth with the Children's Center?
We currently have 6 full-time, well, not all full-time, but about 4 full-time, 2.5, 2 that are half-time.
Okay.
With all our service providers.
Okay.
That was the main question I had. Thank you.
Rich, anything?
Yes, I have a question for you, too. In your cover letter here, you only talk about the ITSS services. Is that all Ellis County funding is used for? Just the ITSS services? Do you have any other revenue sources?
Yes, we have our Part C grant that we get from the state, and then we also have United Way funding, and then other local fundraising efforts that we make as our group in categorical aid.
Is there a reason you don't charge any families?
Yes, federal law allows us not to charge any families, and we're free, appropriate public education, and that's what we also get from birth to 3, that we don't provide any charges to families.
Okay.
Thank you both for being here.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ellis County Council on Aging. I think Roy's going to present.
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, while Mr. Husted makes his way up here, I'll just step in for a second and thank the Ellis County Council on Aging. As the 3 of you know, you appoint a 5-member body that reviews the budget requests from the 6 senior agencies. So those 5 volunteers did get together earlier in the spring and make recommendations, and those are in your packet.
Thank you. Go ahead, Roy.
Good evening. We on the committee, and I'm speaking for Mr. Winholtz because he's the chairman of the committee, we listen to these people present their needs to us. All of these, the meal people, the Ellis Nutrition Center, the Hayes Senior Center, and the Victoria Meal Site, they work with providing meals and socialization services to the senior citizens of the community. The meal price is $3.25 for people 62 and older, and they do not get any of that money. That money all goes to the Northwest Kansas Area Agency on Aging, and they provide the food to the meal sites. And so that's what that money is used for. The Foster Grandparents Program, that's where people, seniors, go into the schools. Usually it's in the elementary schools, and they provide the special attention to students that need a little extra help in reading or confidence or whatever that the teachers don't have time. And they can also see where those students are able to keep up with their peers, and so they have a better chance in becoming an educated citizen later on in life. The senior companions, they provide services to other seniors in the community that are homebound. Those people, they make, seniors that are providing the services, they make $2.35 an hour. And what they do for these people is they go in and do whatever housework they need, help them prepare meals, help them run errands, that kind of stuff. So these senior citizens in the Hays and the Ellis County area, they do receive these services, and these services are basically kind of different for each different agency. The agencies presented their requested amount, and their requested amount was $133,627. We listened to what they had to say. We told them in the beginning that we had been told that there is going to be significant cuts, and we tried to follow the will of the commission, and we came up with $112,750 is what we're asking for, or what we feel is fair to these people. All of the agencies were cut kind of severely, but the Northwest Kansas Area Agency on Aging was not cut quite as much as the others. And the reason for that being is they service all of these other agencies. They provide help for them. And the money they get comes from the federal government. And as you know, you get money from the government, you get strings attached. The government will provide whatever they can justify, but they provide 85%, and Northwest Kansas Area Agency on Aging has to provide 15%. We felt since they helped these other agencies that they deserve not to be cut quite as much as the others, but they did receive a significant reduction in what they had requested. Are there any questions?
I just want to thank you first for cutting approximately 21,000 out of your budget, and thank you for listening to what we had to say earlier on, and thank you again for being here this evening.
Yes, do you know how many seniors are taking part in the meal sites at Ellis, Victoria, or Hays?
I have that number. Victoria has an average of 40 people a week. Victoria is kind of small, and they say that the reason for that is the people there in the community, they find it that they feel like they're taking charity when they get these meals. They're not getting charity, they're paying for these meals. And they also are having the opportunity to socialize, but they don't quite see it that way. The Ellis Food Bank or Food Service serves their weekly average is approximately 160 meals served, or 160 people are served.
That's in Ellis, Roy?
That's in Ellis.
You said Victoria was 41?
It was about 40 a week, wasn't it?
Or 40 a week?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I've got Hayes one in here somewhere. Oh, the Hayes Senior Senior Citizen is approximately 600 meals per week.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Dustin?
Roy, it looks like you did some of the heavy lifting for us to try and figure out what the best way to go on this is, so I appreciate that. I think it speaks a lot to our senior citizens and how great your generation is. When we come, it's not to discount what anybody else is doing. I know how tight things are, but the idea that you came with a 15% budget cut right away to us, took the time to see who needed the money the most and who was helping all the other agencies. It's definitely appreciated. I don't really have any questions. I just really appreciate the work that you guys did in going through and fighting through these budgets for us.
We know these people operate on a shoestring. They're all volunteer agencies, and they get by with the least they can. So hopefully they'll be able to continue their services. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Thanks for coming. Soil Conservation District is next. I think we have a few representatives.
Good evening. I'm Mary Pfeiffer, currently serving as chairperson of the Board of Supervisors for the Ellis County Conservation District. This is Sandy Scott. She's the district manager for the district. I'd also like to introduce the remaining members of the Board of Supervisors, Sarah Fahnenstiel, Alan Roth, Tom Walters Jr., and Brett Schmidt. Travis Groff serves as an associate board member. Landon Liker is employed as a conservation district technician, and Dennis Doring is the NRCS supervisor district conservationist for the Hayes Management Unit. Along with serving at the local level, the board members and staff are active on the state and national levels. Alan has been elected to serve as president of the Kansas Association of Conservation Districts and also serves as a regional advisory committee member for the water plan. Sandy serves as the area representative for the KACD Employees Organization and is a member of the KACD Endowment Committee. Landon Liker serves on the Big Creek Middle Smoky Hill River Watershed Advisory Committee. On April 14, 1935, known in this part of the country as Black Sunday, the Great Plains lost an estimated 300 million tons of topsoil due to the lack of conservation practices. How much dirt is that? Picture dirt piles 3 feet deep, wide enough to cover the width of an average 2-lane highway, running all the way from Los Angeles to New York, multiplied 7 times. That's a lot of dirt. Enough, in fact, to convince President Franklin D. Roosevelt to write a letter to state governors encouraging them to create soil conservation districts to work with the Soil Conservation Service, now the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, which had just been established as part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. At the county level in 1945, the residents of Ellis County voted on the organization of the Ellis County Conservation District and became the 55th county in Kansas to form a soil conservation district, now known as the Ellis County Conservation District. The first Ellis County Conservation District supervisors were C.W. Krause, W.D. Phillip Jr., Don Gashler, R.A. Liker, and R.L. Hall. These first supervisors would be proud of what the Conservation District is accomplishing today. As one of the Conservation District supervisors in the state has said, conservation districts gave the grassroots local boost that the Soil Conservation Service needed in order to provide technical assistance to landowners and tenants back in the 30s. Conservation districts have given the people a sense of trust to accept the assistance offered for over 3/4 of a century. Conservation districts rely on state and local budgets for their operation. As the state and local budgets become tighter and elected officials are faced with tough decisions about what to fund and where to make cuts, it's important to remember county dollars allocated to conservation are invested in saving our soil and improving water quality. The Conservation District administers funding from the County Commissioners, the Conservation District, and the State of Kansas for cost-share programs to assist producers to install best management practices. In 2018, these programs financially assisted in the installation of 256,538 linear feet, or 48.5 miles of terraces, 31 acres of waterways, 13,960 linear feet of pipeline, 6 watering facilities, 1,128 acres of rangeland plantings, 3 windbreaks installed, and financially assisted with replacing 5 failed septic systems in the county. The district's main purpose is to get conservation practices on the land. These conservation practices are a benefit to everyone with an impact on water quality improvement. District programs include the Ellis County Cost Share Program, which is part of our budget request. Other cost share programs include the Terrace Enlargement Program, Ellis County Supplemental Program, and the Windbreak Program. State programs administered by the district include the State Water Resources Cost Share Program and the Non-Point Source Pollution Cost Share Program. Along with the county, district, and state cost share programs, the Conservation District assists the NRCS with the Environmental Quality Incentive Program, or EQIP, and the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP, which are multi-year contracts. Currently, we have over $1.7 million obligated to 75 active EQIP contracts. We have 8 new contracts funded for $163,754. The CSP program has over $2 million obligated to 22 active contracts. The program just had the cutoff date for applications, and we have the month of June to develop the plans and have the applications ready for funding. The good thing is this money coming into the county, and for the most part is spent locally, putting conservation on the land and updating management practices and equipment. These cost share programs help with the financial burden facing producers to preserve the land and maintain the quality of water. The price of grain, the same it was years ago, and the price of equipment and chemicals haven't gone up. Producers don't have an option to set the prices for their crops, yet they are the people who provide food for everyone and preserve our natural resources. The staff is currently working on applications for the fiscal year 2020 cost share programs. All applications for cost share assistance are ranked based on getting the most bang for the dollar. The ranking criteria for cropland is based on soil type, slopes, proximity to permanent or intermittent streams, and the best management practices. Rangeland ranking criteria is based on similar factors and the amount of rest for the pastures. The county benefits through the conservation practices installed with sediment control, water quality, benefits to wildlife, and sustainability. Besides the benefits to the farmer, his land and farming operation, these conservation practices keep the soil sediment from leaving the field to a minimum benefits county roads and ditches. The Conservation District also provides conservation education opportunities for youth and producers. Kids in Ag Day, Earth Water Festivals, and Wacky Day provide conservation education to approximately 1,000 students in Ellis County and neighboring counties. The district also co-sponsored the Hayes High Land and Home Site Judging Team to participate at the National Land and Home Site Judging Competition. The Conservation District sponsored scholarships to the No-Till on the Plain Winter Conference, Range Youth Camp, and Kansas Association for Conservation and Environmental Education. A Conservation District newsletter is distributed to 1,800 farmers and ranchers each year. We also have a Facebook page to keep people informed of conservation opportunities and activities. The Board of Supervisors is also considering reprinting the plat book for Ellis County, which was originally printed in 2016 with a total of 200 books sold. The Conservation District receives the maximum amount for the state matching funds based on the amount of funding received from the county. This is a huge benefit to the operation of the Conservation District. The Conservation District looks forward to working with local farmers and ranchers in the years to come. Along with this Board of Supervisors and staff, the Ellis County Conservation District would like to thank the County Commission for their interest in the activities of the district. Our total fiscal year 2020 budget request for $10,750 for the Ellis County Cost Share Program and $64,375 for district operations is the same request as last year for a total of $75,125. Again, thank you for your consideration of our budget request. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mary. Commissioners, Destin?
Phil, on my list here, it's, the numbers she just said are slightly off of what I have in my ledgers. Okay.
Yeah, they've requested 75 for the last several years, but the commission has been allocating 72,646.
Okay.
And so if you look at the budget sheet they provided, that's actually what it totals to.
Right. Okay. Interestingly enough, I've been reading a book called The Hardest Times that talks a lot about Ellis County, Kansas, and conservation districts, and how that is one of the few government things that's ever been done for farmers that actually help them. You know, farmers are the best conservationists. I believe they have every reason to conserve of their land, and I appreciate everything you guys do to help them in that process. I don't really have any questions. It looks like it's pretty cut and dry that a lot of this is going to keeping your building staffed. So obviously those decisions get real tough when we're not talking about moving around product or things of that nature, and we're talking about people. So, but I really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Butch, anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you. I noticed here on the budget sheet you presented, the state appropriation matching funds is $25,000 for 2020. Is that all the state gives you is $25,000?
That's the maximum that we can get from the state. In the past, probably 7 years, the state did some cutting, and we haven't gotten the 25,000, and it was actually at one time 20,000 that we got, and it's slowly working its way back up. We just got $100,000 that is being divided between 105 counties. And not that we're going to get an extra $10,000. I don't mean it like that, but I mean, we do get a portion of that money back again this year. So hopefully 2020 we'll get $25,000.
Okay, another question. On your budget sheet, you have a transfer of funds of $25,000. Which fund is that transferred from?
We have what we call an activity fund, and the Conservation District actually owns the building that we rent back to the USDA government, and with that it funds those programs that you're talking about. It also helps fund the personnel.
How much is in that activity fund?
Total right now it's probably setting at about 100,000.
Okay.
But it varies through the year as we pay out for practices that are completed. We're sitting here now because of this year with a little bit more money than normal because of the year that we've had. So wet, we can't get the conservation practices out on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's sitting there holding the money until those practices can be completed.
Okay, that's all.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for being here.
Okay, thank you.
Access transportation.
Evening, Ellis County Commissioners, support staff. My name is Wade Drews. I'm the Transportation Manager for Access to Public Transportation, and also a Division of Developmental Services in North Kansas. Sorry about that. We are requesting the same that we've been doing over the last several years of $60,000 for our budget for this year. We are funded mainly through the federal government in the state of Kansas from the Federal Transportation Association and the KDOT. Last year, we provided over 70,000 rides for the county, city and county. This year, we're going to be right around 72,000 rides for the year. So we do plenty of business for the people of the state, not the state, but the county. We provide rides to people for medical purposes, shopping, recreation, whatever their case may be. But most of our clientele that we help are the low-income families that cannot provide their own transportation, so we provide that. We operate 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm sure the commission is aware that we also do Safe Ride, which is partners to the Safer Community. We just clicked over 230,000 rides on the partnership with Fort Hays State and the partners in the community. We just clicked over 100,000 rides for the Tiger Transport that we do for the college, but that is also revenue that we get from the college. Currently, we are looking at the $60,000 just to offset all the costs of operational and the expenses that we incur in access public transportation. We did raise our rates for rides for the last year. We went from $1.50, which was one of the lowest in the state of Kansas. KDOT asked us to raise that rate. We did. We raised it to $2 per ride one way, $4 for county rides. We operate in the county 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and we run 2 routes, one in the morning, one in the afternoon to both Victoria, anywhere in the Ellis County we will go. That's about all I have for you guys. If you need any questions or answers, I can help you out.
Does like Western Beverage, do they still help fund Safe Ride and some of the other companies in town as far as that? They do not?
Most of the funding from the Safe Ride program, Partnership for a Safer Community, comes from DUI convictions, the Ellis County Courthouse.
Okay.
And stuff. As far as the funds out, I don't know how that fund does. Bob Duffy at the college, he handles all the accounting for
Yes.
partnership. So I know that this year they're looking at possibly losing $10,000 in funding from the Fort Hays State, which could possibly affect Safe Ride on Wednesday nights. We may cut out Safe Ride on Wednesday nights.
Have you seen much decrease on weekends as far as like with having Uber and Lyft and them in town? Have you seen much decrease in rides on weekends or not?
No, we have not. We are pretty, Saturdays and Sundays during the daytimes hours, we are booked solid. We have to actually refuse rides because we don't have the capability of taking some people to rides. We do the best we can. Very rarely, I mean, you might have less than 2 or 3, maybe 4 rides in a Saturday or Sunday that we have to refuse rides to.
Okay.
We do provide it, and it's a $2 ride, but as far as Safe Ride, yeah, we do no, we do 300-400 rides per night on Safe Ride.
Okay. Butch, questions?
Yeah, just a comment. I did notice in reading through all your information here that any decrease in funding that we would give you would result in a decrease from KDOT. Is that correct?
That is correct. For every dollar that we get for local matching fund, we get $2.33 from the federal government in the state of Kansas.
Okay.
So if you would see on our figures what it would count to. If we did the 14.25%, and then we double it in case you guys decided to go more.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do get funding cut from our system, then it could affect our operational hours for access.
Dustin, questions?
What kind of research have you done as far as your statement of the income level of a lot of the people that use your rides? How's that? How do you guys figure that, and how do you know, I guess?
KU, Kansas State University, did a study for when we were, I think you were on us with a strategic planning committee.
Okay.
KU did a study for us, and they took a study of what they do and then kind of figured out how the income of the Ellis County.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Yep. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you. We appreciate your guys' consideration.
Mm-hmm. Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission.
Good evening.
Good evening.
But, I'm Randall Raby. I'm the director of the Northwest Kansas Planning and Development Commission and Pioneer Country Development, and on the board of the Northwest Kansas Housing. And we all cover the 18 counties of Northwest Kansas doing various things. I told Philip earlier, today's my birthday, and I couldn't think of a better way of celebrating my birthday than talk about our budgets. So,
Happy birthday.
anyway, to start with, we do cover the 18 counties. The Planning Commission was actually started clear back in is either the late 60s, 1970s. The dues have always been based on 1/10 of a mil based on the county's total assessed valuation. In exchange for that, each county has a board member, which Butch serves on our board right now. He kind of got thrown into the fire the very first year because we received the letter saying that the budget would be approximately cut in half, and so he kind of had to answer to the other board members there, but he did a very good job of that. Actually, what our bylaws say that if you don't pay the full 1/10 of a mil, you're not allowed to have a board member on the Planning Commission, which bothers me. I really don't want that to happen, but you know, we would have to change the bylaws to adjust that a little bit. So some of the things that we don't do a very good job of tooting our horn, I guess, and just kind of let you know, over the last 5 years, we've done over $20 million in infrastructure projects in Northwest Kansas, much of that coming from the community development block grant funds. We do $15 to $25 million in business loans every year. We've built 130 houses or duplexes throughout Northwest Kansas, and then we also do the financial and accounting for the Northwest Kansas Travel Council. Just in Ellis County alone, over the last 10 years, your dues have been $369,673. In that same time period, we've done $2,211,000 worth of infrastructure projects, with 1.3 million of that being actual grant funds. And just recently, we sent in a $1 million grant application for the city of Ellis to build a new swimming pool. Them will probably be funded somewhere around August, I would guess. We ought to have a pretty good chance, because they had enough funds to fund 20 projects, and there was only 13 statewide. So we're hoping everybody will get funded. As far as SBA loans, in Ellis County alone, we've funded 19 businesses just in the last 10 years, a total of about $18.5 million, and then another $418,000 in actual revolving loan funds that we administer through the office. We've got several revolving loan funds. These are mainly on smaller businesses, you know, that require maybe $20,000 to help leverage a bank loan of, you know, maybe another $50,000 or something like that. But then the last 3 years, we've purchased the VOTEC houses. Right now, we've got 2 of them that we're trying to get ready. If we could ever get them out of the swamp out there on the Toulon exit, that'll be for sale. That actually, the value of them will be somewhere close to $500,000 that we're going to help increase the tax base for Ellis County. We administer the Section 8 rental assistance program for Northwest Kansas. Ellis County alone has 55 families that we pay a big share of their rent. We've got a big long waiting list. You know, we could fund 3 times that many, but that's all the money that we have available. We also administer the tenant-based rental assistance, which is just state funds. It's much like the Section 8 rental assistance. Previously, we built the 10 duplex units over in Ellis. They come out of the tax credit program this last year, and we sold them to an individual. Currently, just to let you know, approximately 30% of the dues that we receive come from Ellis County. And we realize where it's based on 1/10 of a mil, and Ellis County is one of the counties that's growing in northwest Kansas. So over the years, you know, your dues have increased versus, say, Wallace County considerably. And so I've talked to a lot of other planning commissions to see how they do it, and they're all kind of the same way. Some of them base it strictly on population, which we would be in the same boat if it was on population, because Ellis County's got the population versus a lot of the rural counties. But the one thing I would like to stress is that, you know, we've got to work together as a region out here. You know, all you have to do is go into the parking lot of Walmart, you know, some weekend and see where all the cars come from that add to the sales tax base of Ellis County. And it's not just Ellis County, it's, you know, it's Rooks County, it's Trigo County, it's La Crosse and every other county that in northwest Kansas. So I think we've all got to work together, and I really appreciate, you know, Ellis County being members of the Planning Commission, you know, basically forever, since the start of the Planning Commission. So does anybody have any questions?
Dustin?
You know, no real questions for me. This is a lot of good information, as I'm not, you know, on your board like Butch. I don't get to see the month-to-month working, but it's neat to see all the things that you guys have your hands in. The only question I have is, what directly does our dues go towards paying? As far as, is it staff for the Planning Commission? Or
Basically, our total budget runs somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000. Our staff salaries right now, our normal staff would be at 9.5 staff people. Right now, we're at 6.5, and that's partly because we've lost a couple housing people over the last 2 years, and we just haven't replaced them because the budget's really been tight. But you know, our total staff salary runs somewhere around $380,000 out of the $500,000 to $600,000. So our basic need is for salaries.
Okay.
Right at this point.
Thank you.
And the county dues do match an economic development grant that we get from the Economic Development Administration, and we've got to match that dollar for dollar. Right now it's at $70,000. They're talking about raising that, so it's not a big, the match is not a big issue right now, but you know, if you know, we get cut very much, you know, it might be an issue in the future. So
Okay.
Butch?
Yes, Randy, a couple questions. If we don't pay the full amount of dues, one of two things could happen. We wouldn't be represented on the board, or we could change the bylaws to where we could be represented. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And if we did not pay the dues, or pay that part of the dues, and we weren't represented on the board, the city of Ellis would still be able to apply for grants. Is that correct?
They would still be able to do it if they want to do it on their own. I can tell you, we would not be very willing to write a grant for somebody that wasn't a member, to be honest.
Okay.
You know, and I will say that, you know, Karina and Justine are as good as grant writers as anybody in the state. Karina's been there 25 years, and she knows what she's doing.
Well, you just said we all should be working together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like that kind of contradicted that. Would you rather have us not in the Northwest Planning Commission at all?
No.
Okay,
No,
so you'd rather have the
I'd rather
22,000?
take half of the dues and change the bylaws than I would.
Okay.
Than I would not have you a part of.
Okay. Have you got a sense from any other of the board members what they might feel like about changing bylaws?
Yeah, from Logan County and Sherman County. In fact, I've got to go talk to both of them. They're talking about not even paying their dues now. So.
Because why?
They just want to know what they're getting for their money.
Oh.
You know, and I can show them the same statistics that I showed you. You know, you know, we've done millions of dollars of business loans. We've done, you know, millions of dollars of CDBG funds, the same thing, so.
Well, you know, we would be paying our full dues if it wouldn't be for the situation we find ourselves in.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Yep. I understand it perfectly.
That's all the questions I have.
I guess I have just
Thank
one
you.
question. The Votech out here, I know, just sold their third house. I know you guys bought the last two, you said. They just sold their third
Last
house.
three, actually, yeah.
Last three, and you're sitting on two of the three? Is that
Right.
correct?
Well, to be honest, we're sitting on all three. And it's for various reasons. The one we moved to Waukeeny, we just got the thing, it took about a year to get it finally moved, and got it set, got it ready to go, and that's when they got hammered with that great big hailstorm. I was dumb enough to give the contractor the insurance check and say, just fix it so we can get it sold. He took off with our money, and we're in a big lawsuit right now.
I was alluding to that question, so thank you for clarifying that, because I did some checking out on the history of the house in Waukeeny, and
Yeah, it's a beautiful house. I mean, you're talking about a house that's 1,900 and some square foot, and it's got full finished basement, walkout basement, and deck, and you know, I'm just hoping we can get it fixed here pretty quick to get it sold. And the same with the two out here on Toulon exit. We're hoping, you know, by July we can have them up and ready for sale too. So
I guess that was my next question, and I guess I have two questions instead of one. I've been watching both of them, and I don't know who your contractor is, it doesn't matter. But they've been there for 2 years, and I haven't seen a lot of progress.
Yeah.
And I guess if we have the money to lay out, I know what you paid for them 3 houses. If we have that kind of money to lay out, I think we'd want to be pushing to get them houses done, whoever contractor you use, and get them on the market.
yeah, I agree. Them funds originally came from the Hanson Foundation, gave us money to, and the idea was that we would buy one house, you know, you'd buy a house in the spring, get it set, get it sold, turn around and buy the next one. It just hasn't happened that way. Just fighting with the people to move them has been a full-time job almost, but been a learning experience, I will say that. But
All righty, thank you, that's all I had.
Thank you, Randy.
okay, thank you.
Casa of the High Plains.
Hi, I am Lindsay Christenberry. I'm the Executive Director with Casa of the High Plains. I'm also a licensed master social worker. We requested the $9,000, but I want you to know that our board is aware that there is the likelihood of the cut, so they are aware of that. In 2018, we served 40 children, and this year alone, we've served 31 children in our area. And what CASA does is we are court-appointed special advocates. And so when a child has been abused or neglected and they're currently going through the court system, the judge will often ask for a CASA volunteer to help speak for the child on the case. Usually we are put on the most complicated cases, whether it was the abuse was rather extensive or the neglect was pretty extensive, or there are just so many players in the case that it is kind of challenging for the judge to keep it all together. And we serve as the eyes and the ears for the court. So our CASA volunteers go through 30 hours of pre-service training, 2 hours of courtroom observation. They have a complete background check, including child abuse and neglect registry check, criminal history check. If there's a check out there, we are probably running this check on them before they are ever matched with a child. This year, like I've said, we've served 31 children so far. We have had 14 volunteers. We've had a couple leave, so we are down to 10 right now, but we just had 3 complete training, and we have another 3 signed up to do the second round of training. So we should be back up there again. Our goal is to have 15 volunteers. That is how many we can have at one time, given that we only have 1 staff person, which is me. Our agency does utilize additional resources. We typically have an intern from Fort Hays. As it's summertime, we don't have the intern right now, but we will get another one once the school year starts again. We also have an office volunteer. This individual does a lot of our main office work with helping us to file cases, helping us fundraise. If you can name it, she does it. So we really utilize our community to meet some of the needs since we just are a one-person office. Some of the services we provide these children, in addition to talking to them or speaking for them in court, is we do a program. We had a program called the Transitional Age Youth Specialist. We did have a 1-year grant to have the specialist on board, and now that grant is over, and so I've absorbed those responsibilities. But what that program does is our youth that are 14 and older that are less likely to be adopted, we have a pre and post assessment that we have them take. And it helps us to identify if the youth know how to fill out job applications, write resumes, apply for college, know where to identify their social security number or get their birth certificate or whatever they may need to age out of the system and still be able to contribute to our community and be successful. As you guys probably know, the older youth are less likely to be adopted. Often, if there's not a program in place for them, then they will go, there's actually a name for it. It calls foster care to prison pipeline, and that happens to a lot of them, or they end up homeless. And so we're really trying to make sure that the youth we're serving, that doesn't happen to them. Our intern this year did a study for us. She did it statewide called an ACE study. This helped us to identify within our own volunteers their ACE scores, which mean adverse childhood experiences, which can affect them in their futures. And this helped us to see a lot of times if a volunteer isn't successful, it is because something that's happened with that child that they've been placed with triggers something from their own past. And so knowing this and helping us identify this makes us more successful when we place the volunteers, that it'll be a better match. And she did that locally for us, and then she also did that statewide for us. I'd like to mention that this is our 30th year in Hayes and serving the 23rd Judicial District, so that's pretty exciting. Our agency, in addition to being active with the youth in foster care, we're also pretty active within the community. We serve on the Early Childhood Block Grants Committee. We also serve on the HICC. Neither of those have funding connected to them, but it does allow us to help contribute to what's happening with the kids in our community. The children that we do not serve through our CASA program, we do assist St. Francis with them in other ways. When we get additional donations, such as Jan Sports, the backpack company donates to us every year, we take the number of backpacks that we need for our youth, and then we help distribute them through St. Francis or USD 489 to make sure they're getting to the kids in our community, because we want them to be successful as well. I kind of want to tell you a little bit about what CASA does for these kids. So kids that have a CASA volunteer, they usually do better in school. Their grades are higher. They are more likely to graduate from high school and to go on to college. According to National CASA, they also are more successful in gaining employment after college. And our CASA volunteers, their main goal is to help these children find a safe, permanent home as quickly as possible. Hopefully that is reintegration with their families. We want them to go back to their families. We want them to be successful with their families. But if that is not something that can happen, we want them to get adopted as soon as possible. And that's because every time a child leaves one foster home and goes to the next foster home and goes to the next foster home, which can happen quite a bit, every time that occurs, that's a new traumatic experience for them. And if you know anything about the traumatic experiences, more than 4 traumatic experiences can really deter your life and how successful you are in the future. And so we want to limit that. I want to tell you about one of our little kiddos without giving too much details. We had, he was a young teenager, and the court contacted me and asked me if we would take on his case. And so I talked to the individuals about him, and it was basically, they were fairly certain that we were just going to be maintaining him until he went to prison, was kind of the idea. He had done quite a bit of things that was putting him on a pretty bad path. Our CASA volunteer got to know this child. This child trusted her. He provided her with some very important information about what was happening related to his parents. He gave her actual emails that had been exchanged between him and his family to show what was occurring. These were shared with the court. And And we were able to put in appropriate boundaries to make sure some of this communication was ending. That was negative. Some of this negative communication was ending. This child now, he bounced, I'm not really sure how many foster homes in the a year that we've had him. I know he's been in at least 5. But he is finally in a foster home that has kept him since these email communications had ended. They've kept him. He, in court the other day, he had asked the judge if it was okay if he went ahead and applied for jobs. His grades went way up towards the end of the school year, and he is very successful, or at least right now he's being very successful. And a lot of that is credited to the CASA volunteer. We also had another child that had extreme anxiety whenever he was around his parents. Our CASA volunteer really looked into that, really looked into what was going on there, and we were able to get this child on a path towards adoption, which will be much more successful for him in the future. So like I said, we always want them reintegrated with their families if that's possible, but if not, we want to be the source that can help the judge say it's time to move this forward. It's time that we get these children into safe homes. Do you guys have any questions?
Justin?
First of all, I just want to tell you I really appreciate that you guys do a good job of raising private funds. I think that's really important, and especially as a governing body that's taking taxpayer money and giving it out. It means a lot to me to see that the community supports you as well, privately and through their own accord. And I know you guys work really hard on your Valentine's Day deal. So there's no real questions from me. I understand costs. I've had an employee that worked for him, so I learned quite a bit from her when she was volunteering, I should say. The idea that you guys can get that many volunteers to do what seems to me to be a tough job means that there's a lot of people out there that care, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Butch?
No questions.
Yep, thank you for your service and all that you do.
Thank you.
Western Kansas Child Advocacy Program.
My name is Jonathan Harold, and I am with the Western Kansas Child Advocacy Center. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
Basically what we do is we help heal the trauma of child abuse through prevention, support, and services. We specialize in advocacy, we specialize in forensic interviewing, and also therapy as well. Some new things, I don't know if everybody's familiar with what we do, but we offer the same services we've been offering. But on top of that, past 2 months ago, we got on the road our 6th mobile unit. And so what we did was we realized whenever this organization or this agency started that there were children, the most frontier, the most, I've got a strong accent, and I always tell, this is my pitch line to get you like on my side, is always say, I don't talk weird, you do, but I forgot to say that. So I am from Kentucky, but anyways, we realize these children from the most frontier, most rural communities, they was having a hard time to come to a center, and so we are the only CAC in the state, and also one of the few CACs in the nation that actually utilizes mobile units. And so we just put on the road our 6th mobile unit, and it's a medical unit. So on top of the advocacy, on top of the forensic interview and the therapy, we also, we are doing medical exams now. We've got 2 registered nurses that comes on the mobile units with our advocates to do those exams. Them exams, we do what is called a SANE exam, which is very crucial. You have a time frame after, let's say, a sexual abuse took place. You have a time frame in order to collect evidence. We can do that. And some communities cannot do that. Even if they have a local hospital, they will still make them travel to elsewhere to do those SANE exams. So we can do that. And then also we just pulled on our team 2 youth mentor advocates. And so we've got one here in Ellis County and then one in Feeney County. And what they are doing, they are partnering with the school systems and starting what is called a Y-Try program. It's just a mentorship type program just to just especially these ones that has abuse, unfortunately, just to show them that they can flourish in their future, that they don't have to let that define them as they grow in their communities. And so that's some new things we've got going on. Last year, we saw 519 children, or cases rather, and so that's about equivalent to two cases per working day for us. It takes about $1,700 to $2,000 to utilize our service per case, and you guys had 113 cases last year in Ellis County, so way too many. And one day I always tell people, hopefully I've got the best job in the world and I got the worst job in the world. You know, best jobs because I'm fighting against child abuse, worst jobs because there is child abuse, and that's a pretty drastic number there. And so hopefully, as we continue to utilize our services and in our counties, which is 34 counties now, hopefully that number will start dropping. So, any questions?
Do you have a breakdown of your map, what is funded by each county, other than what you asked from for Ellis County?
I do know, yes. Well, I've got a breakdown. I don't have copies of how much.
Is that something you could provide the commission, and also fundraising efforts and where else your money comes from, that we could have that in a handout? We didn't get that enclosure in our handout. Is that's something you can provide to Phil and get that to us, please?
Absolutely. I do have our budget, and then also where our funding does come from.
Okay. Yes, if you could give that to Phil we could have it for our next meeting. He can make copies and distribute that to the commission, please. That'd be handy to have.
I will say 70% of our funding comes from grants.
Okay.
And then the other 30 will come from our communities that we're part of. We get anywhere between $500 to $30,000. So probably the top was $30,000 last year. For this year, the lowest was about 500.
Okay.
Well, one county was 0. So apart from the one county, it was 500. So we do get anywhere between $500 to $30,000 from the county. You guys, I think last year you guys did 4,500. That's what we're asking again this year, just because we know that every community is getting tight right now, just with everything going on, and so it's just it's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to hopefully one day have a partnership with all of our communities to where we can be self-sustainable. If you ever remove the grants, that we can be self-sustainable for 5 to 10 years, we're just not there yet. So we do get 70% of our funding from grants.
Okay. Commissioners, questions? Butch?
I have none.
Dustin?
Can you tell me a little bit about your private funding, private donations to the organization?
So basically, the other 30%, we actually do some fundraisers. So we got some major fundraisers we do. I think we've tried one here 2 years ago, which I just came on staff in February. I was a senior pastor and I resigned to fight against child abuse. But 2 years ago, we did a fundraiser here. But we do a major fundraiser in Scott City. It's called Diamonds and Champagne, and we raise anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 on that one event. And then we do what is called a casino night in Kobe, and it raised about $30,000 to $50,000. And then all through the year, different people. I think a couple years ago, we partnered with the car dealership. They gave us a vehicle at basically base price that we purchased. And what we did was we worked with our law enforcement, which, by the way, that's the only way we get involved, is we work with your law enforcement and your county attorneys. And so we went to all of our counties and talked to the law enforcement and said, hey, we're getting this right here for a base price. We're going to get it. Would you sell tickets for a raffle? And they did. And then we ended up raising about $100,000 by giving away a Jeep. And that was 2 years ago, I believe it was. And so things like that. And then, our funding from private, just whoever, is just, it's random. And so, we have families that supported, for example, we had a family that supported a child across seas. The child got 18, and so they quit supporting them, so they give us like $700 a month. So, and it can vary, so.
Okay, no more question.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is we're going to take a 5-minute recess because I feel the need to stand, and so do some of you, I'm sure, because you've been sitting here for an hour and a half. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. I didn't have a gavel. Thank you all for being patient and taking a little recess, and we're going to get started with Humane Society of the High Plains.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Betty Hansen. I'm the manager at the Humane Society of the High Plains. This is Jessica Freeb, and she is my assistant manager. In 2018, we took in from the county 7 dogs and puppies, 46 cats and kittens as strays. With a total of 116 animals, the general cost for their care was around $5,800. Last year, we requested $4,500 from the county to help with these costs, and this year we are asking for $3,000 because of the budget concerns. Our biggest fear, I guess, if we don't get any funding, would be that people would no longer take the time to pick these animals up and bring them to us. And that, of course, they'd become wild, running in packs, posing danger to the public, damaged property, starvation, possibly death for kittens and puppies. I'll keep ours really short. It's pretty simple. I think you guys kind of pretty much aware of what we do. So
Yes, we are.
we'll just open up for questions unless.
I also wanted to make a point. She's saying with the issues that could arise, with public safety, I mean, disease can also rise. I mean, you get wild packs of dogs, cats even. You have rabies, parvo, distemper. Rabies is a zoonotic disease. It could be passed to humans. You know, it's something that we are here for the animal welfare, but we also are trying to give a service to this community and to keep, public safety in mind as well. That's all I have.
Thank you. Butch, anything?
No, I do want to thank you for bringing in a budget cut.
Sure.
That's commendable, and it's a large one, too. And just keep up the good work. I do have 2 rescue dogs living in my house.
Great.
And
3's a charm.
yeah, 3's a charm. 3's too many. 2's
We
enough.
can get you one.
Yeah, I'm sure you could.
Dustin, how many rescue animals is at your house? You don't have any, you might
Our
need
dog
some.
is a mutt. He's not a rescue animal, but
We love the mutts too.
yeah, there's no questions from me. Thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming. Ellis Alliance. Nobody?
They're going through a bit of a transition, so they might not have sent anybody this evening, but you do have a request from them in the packet. They're requesting the same amount that they received this year.
I spoke with Travis Colrose about this a little bit, so I imagine it's just oversight on their part as far as sending somebody, but I imagine it could be involved with that transition.
Okay, we'll move on to Hayes Arts Council.
Well, now instead of good afternoon, it's good evening. Thank you so much for hearing our request and for the support that we've received from the commission in the past. We are asking for the same $3,385, which was a cut that we'd had some years ago, and it is stated at that rate. I hope that you were able to see in the packet the numbers of programs that we have, the amount of people that we serve through all of Ellis County. We work with all the schools, public and private, in the county. The programs, so many of the programs that we have are completely free. When we have things like art walks, it's truly about promoting a sense of community as well as even some economic development, as we don't charge people to be part of that. We do it because we know it's good for the community in a variety of ways. And I know even sitting here tonight, it kind of hit me in a different perspective for the first time. The stories that have been coming out of the audience, and as an Ellis County native and somebody who considers with great importance all of Ellis County, much less Victoria, from which I came, these entities and agencies which out of necessity have had to develop for services that need to be required. And it's really important. And so it's not that we're all in the same boat, but what it did bring to mind to me was, you know, sometimes what's really important in communities is that you have things that allow the citizens to feel like their lives and the services and what's going on in their communities is balanced out. Keeping some of the good, some of the life affirming, some of the things that make us smile and connect in ways that unfortunately some of these other organizations, that's not what they're about, but that's what we're about. And quality of life in communities is really important because we know that we want our young people to feel like they can return to Hayes if they go to get an education or step away for a while. Perhaps knowing that the quality of life, the cultural enhancements, the things to see and do that are open to everyone and not an elite few, maybe it'll be like, you know, that was really a great place to be a kid. That was a great place to raise our kids. We are in and out of 12 elementary schools in Hayes, Ellis, Victoria, Plainville, and Russell who do contribute the school systems. And so we are giving these young people opportunities and experiences that would otherwise be unavailable to them. Things that remind them, we hope, and their families, that you can have an exquisitely beautiful life living in our area here in Western Kansas, not only because of the incredible agencies we've seen coming here tonight, but also because there are beautiful things in life and we need to be reminded of them. Support creative expression and the gathering of people. I'm hoping you might have the opportunity to join us for the Summer Art Walk, for instance, on June 21st, when one of our exhibits will be celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Santa Fe Trail, and one of them will be celebrating Waterways and Byways of Kansas by a wonderful artist from Topeka who's just completed 2 large exhibitions in both of those areas. But the other places across our community will be participating. We'll be celebrating a lot of local artists. Again, the evening is free. And the cross-section of people that connect at many of the events that we have is truly a cross-section of our citizenry. By no means is it everybody, but on the Spring Art Walk that took place at the end of April, again, a free community event to bring like-minded citizens together, but have them crossing paths, talking and engaging. The numbers that we clicked off, and we use a clicker, at the Hayes Arts Council was nearly 1,200. And that's people with children in strollers and people with canes and walkers. And we're really proud of that. And again, I know there's a lot of causes, you have a lot of tough decisions, but like I said, sometimes it's nice to know that a community remembers and is elevated to a standard that it wants to live by and a quality of life that it believes their citizens deserve. Of course, that's going to be coming from some of the other agencies, but we also think it can come from some of the things that are provided by and have been nurtured by and cultivated by the Arts Council for children and adults for now in excess of 50 years. And we proudly stand as the first Arts Council formed in the state of Kansas after a gentleman who used to run a music store here in Hayes named Vivian Meckel, as a state representative from our area, authored the legislation that in the mid to early 60s founded the Kansas Arts Commission. So we are the resulting aspect of that legacy, and because this is an incredible community, we're still here after never having been down for 1 year. Things get tight, it goes up and down, but we've never lost a step. And in part, that's due to your support, knowing that a lot of the grants that we do write and things that we do, I'm not saying your support is required for us to get those funds, but I sure know that it goes a long way to leverage them when they know that the community, from a broad, diverse representation, interests, and aspects, believes that those things are also important to the community that they represent. And I'm open to any questions if you have them about the packet or anything we're doing.
Butch?
Yes, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
And one of your line items here with income, one of the largest ones is $32,000 for membership support. How many members do you have?
I think when we send things out, I mean, it's like, you know, this husband and wife have a name on a membership of $100, and this may be an individual or a family at 50. This person might be 250. Usually when we do a mailing, it goes out to about right around 300 people. So I would say it's probably a little under that. That's membership, because some of those are in kind or comps or good folks like yourselves that support those other things, but we work hard to cultivate that. And right now, as the year closes the end of June, we should be close to our target for this year of 30. We upped our standard, and we want to step that up some more for next year. And that's aside from underwriting that we try to get, like when we have the Smoky Hill exhibition or the 5-state photography or the programs that we do in the schools where we do get investment money from them, as well as seeking out grants to things like the Kansas Creative Arts Industries Commission, Heartland Community Foundation, Union Pacific Foundation, a variety of those entities. So the good news is we don't have all our eggs in one basket. So I hope that you're able to support us, but I can honestly stand here and say that even if you don't, we'll keep going, because we've been doing that for over 50 years. And a lot of years we didn't have it, but it's sure a whole lot much more fun and pride fulfilling to know that you're there with us on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dustin, anything?
No, thanks, Brenda. Thanks for all you do.
Yep.
Thank you
Brenda.
very much.
Ellis Junior Free Fair. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm DJ Fisher, the president of Ellis Junior Free Fair. My 4th year of being that. Junior Free Fair is an annual summer event in Northwest Kansas community of Ellis. It is held at the community fairgrounds, which the land was purchased from the Union Pacific Railroad through the last 30 years. The Fair Board is a volunteer venture with community members serving in leadership roles without pay. While the community members gladly volunteer for these roles, the lack of extra income often means that the Fair Board members have to complete maintenance and repairs themselves or postpone improvements and requirements indefinitely until funds are available for the labor or materials. Most of the donations we get from the community are paid back to our exhibitors who have been taken to grow a garden, sew, paint, or use the imagination of any craft, or alongside that, the livestock show that is growing every year. They anticipate a record number of 4-H participants showing this year. With the money received from the county last year, we were able to replace the roof, fascia, and soffit on the restroom building from the septic system that we did in the year before. Description of projects we need to address yet are we need general maintenance on our show barn, hog barn, and overall road maintenance with all the moisture we've had through last year. The doors on the exhibit building are dire need of replacing. The cost of that is around $1,600. And that'll better seal up the building to help lower our utilities in there. The ground consists of 20 acres that continue to get used by not just the fair, but a great place for the kids' activities for our baseball games, summer rec, and school-issued USD school practices and homecoming activities, and other community-related functions such as soccer field, baseball games, batting cages, frisbee golf course, and youth flag football. On our average night of 500 people through the fair, through our 4 nights, and we usually get people from Ellis, Palco, all the surrounding communities to come and participate. We realize funding is an issue, but we would appreciate the same amount as last year, $31.43, for the improvements needed for the repairs to our grounds and a great place for the whole community to enjoy. We also receive sand from you guys through the year for our sand volleyball tournaments, and then we put it out through our roads to help with all that. So with that, is there any questions?
Dustin? Nothing?
No questions from me.
Butch?
What other sources of revenue do you have for this fair?
We built a new arena last year, and we've been trying to have more events through the horse arena and stuff, but the weather has not cooperated one bit with us. Every time we plan something, the arena's too muddy, and we'd like to get some dirt in there to get some runoff, to not have water holes, but that hasn't been possible. So being in the floodplain in Ellis is a real pain.
So you're relying just on Ellis County to fund this?
And the support of all the local residents that give us donations through the year to help to pay for that, and the help of you guys to pay the kids. It's ultimately all about the kids. That's the only reason we all volunteer to do this, is to help the kids out and let them do their 4-H projects and baseball and soccer and stuff.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine. Yep, thank you.
Center of Life Experience. And here I thought I was going to put Neil on the spot.
Oh, wait just a minute. We'll put him on the spot. We won't forget him. I just want to take a minute to say I've been a social worker in this community since 1986, starting at what was then St. Anthony Hospital in Hayes Med, and gone through a variety of experiences, including being the charter president of First Call for Help. And I want to tell you that it just really breaks my heart that we are having to look at needs that people in our community have, and that the cities and counties especially are having to bear the burdens and build the safety net, especially in rural areas, for our people who, because we are rural and not urban, the funding isn't quite there. And I just, my heart just really goes out to all of you and the commissioners for having to make the decisions you do, and creating that balance of a safety net plus the absolutely needed services. So I came here earlier in the year to let you all know with Neil about the changes that have been made in the Center for Life Experience. It has been in existence since 2001 to 2018 as an outreach ministry of the First Presbyterian Church. In 2018, that no longer became the mission outreach for the church, and so the board at that time had to make a decision about whether to go forward as a community-based decision-making. And what motivated them, I think, more than anything, is the needs that we hear and the support that we got from the people who are receiving our services, and saying, we have to keep going, we have to keep going. And so in the last year, thanks to support from a strong accounting firm and legal assistance, we have managed to get through the paperwork and become a community-based 501c3 with our offices in the Hadley Center. We moved on the 27th of December in the middle of the blizzard into our new space, and we are now getting settled well. We have been so pleased by the response we have gotten, the numbers. We average serving 1,000 people per year through our support groups and other things that we do, and that has stayed strong despite the bad weather we've had. And the need has become even more apparent now that we're community-based and people are becoming aware of the services of the center. So we are very pleased and want to thank you for the support that you gave us, the vote of support that you gave us when we came in February, and from your fund, your special commission fund, to get us off rolling. And that really helped. We have been very pleased by the people that have come forward, not in large amounts, but have said, we want you to keep going. And so we have a donor base that of people that have given $25, $50, $100 donations to keep us going. And to this point, we have been able to sustain our budget for the year, and we're very pleased with the response. The response has come because, number one, I believe we have a very strong board who goes out and talks about what we're doing, shares what we're doing with people that are going through loss and grief, and also the members of our grief and loss groups who also go out and talk about what, as much as they can, about what is available to them to help them get through this. Another positive for this year that I want to mention was that we also have interns through Forte State University in social work, and our intern this year took on her project to do her research about the non-emotional impact of grief and loss on a community. And that's looking at how it affects families, how it affects children in terms of attendance in school, how it affects income loss when you lose a main caregiver, income provider in a household, when you're retired and you're living on 2 incomes, and how when you lose a spouse, what that does in terms of your income, in terms of your housing, in terms of all those kinds of things. And another main area is in the area of business and your jobs and productivity. And so this was her project, to look at these aspects of, with the group members and determine, and did they know about the groups, what's needed, how they are impacted. Because my passion, my belief, even as a social worker, we need services from birth to clear through until loss and grief. It's going to affect us all. It's going to affect us all, no matter what. So we need those services. We did discover that there were, in surveying our group members, there was a significant indication that there was a loss of income, that definitely there was a loss in terms of productivity in the business place, especially if they were required to go back to work within 2 or 3 days. Most of the people said they needed at least a week, if not more, simply to take care of someone who's at the end of life, and then also to take care of themselves and their family after a major loss. And we have the 4 groups which represent ages, and we had our Healing Kids Hearts is for kids from 7 to 12 years old who have had a significant loss. The task group that does this, they're all volunteer, and they set the limit at 20 kids. And this year, because of the demand, we had to say we admitted 24 kids. We touched 24 kids' lives and their families in terms of helping them adjust to the loss of a family member, most of whom were probably the male leader. So that's a once-a-year activity, but it's all day long, it's well attended, and the word is getting out there, and it is being well received. We are just, the survey that was done, the research that was done, and the final outcomes of the research paper are now being continued by another student and 2 faculty members at Fort Hays State University. There is very, very little research done about the non-emotional impact. It's kind of like, well, people die all the time, so, that's just, it's kind of like people are born, but there's an impact when you have a mother who has to take time off to raise a baby. There is an impact when you lose a spouse, a family member, whatever. There is an impact if you're a business member or whoever. And so we are looking at the impacts. I think the best thing that I can say and that I've seen come out of this all so far is the great collaboration that we have with working with all our volunteers and members and other people in the community. Any way we can, we try and collaborate with other agencies. We try and make referrals to them, and they make referrals back to us. And we also, every fall and spring, we probably average about, let's see, I have to, 120 students from Northwest Central Kansas VOTEC and Fort Hays State University who come to observe our support groups to get hands-on experience. And as they go out to become nurses and professionals, and they say that this is one of the best things they have. I believe the impact is significant. We have a budget of about $58,000, which will increase this next year because we've made a couple of investments. One that is significant is an investment in a donor management program so that we can be back in touch and stay in touch with those donors, those individual donors who will make those small donations and keep us going. We have no outside income other than the local individuals, foundations, and we do apply for grants. So we are totally basically sustained through that. So I really believe, and I'm going to ask Neil, as a member of one of our groups, to talk about the impact. And I'm very glad since we met, we do have, I do have a brochure, and Neil now has a card, as well as our other board members. So that they can be going out, and as they talk to people, they can be giving them the information. We also have a fundraiser planned for the fall when we bring in an outside guest. Many of you may know J.D. Schramm, who is a local Hayes born resident, and he will be coming in from California to do a fundraiser for us. So to talk about his experience with alcohol, drugs, and how he has rebounded and is now on the faculty at Stanford and Columbia University, and his experience. So that's a fundraiser for us in the fall, and we also will be having a fall campaign. We appreciate having the expertise of a public relations and marketing person on our board. I just feel very positive. We're asking for $6,000 to help us fund what is going to be the increase in the coming year, and a little bit more like the investment in the donor management program. We think that's going to benefit us in the long run, and doing some of those things that will help us sustain. And my goal and my dream is that someday we will come back to this group and say, you know, we are doing good, and we only need I'd love to say we only need $1,000 or $100, but that's my goal. That's our goal, is to become very self-sustaining. So I'm going to, and here with me tonight, the chairman of the board of directors is Don Leiker, and also Alan Sharman, who is a member of Healing After Loss group, and Neil and his wife Carolyn. We have a 12-member board. Of those 12 members, you need to know that part of the bylaws specify that we have to have a representative from each one of our 4 groups on our board of directors. We want community representation. We're doing this for the people in our community. So I will hand this out and let Neil speak, and then if you have questions, be glad to answer them.
Good evening, I'm Neil Younger. You guys all know me. I'm Bill, Phil, Donna, all you guys. I'm kind of stuck on Monday nights with you guys, but
That's
I
good.
like
We
the
welcome
comment.
you.
Are we last on the agenda?
There's one more.
Nope, you have one more after you.
Okay, I was gonna say you saved the best for last. I loved Butch's comment. We need to work together in the community to make this work. You know, it's Ellis County plus all the surrounding counties. Tomorrow marks our son's death anniversary of 9 years and 9 months. I don't know what we would have done without this support group. I know the question's been asked, hear it all night. What are we doing? Like what Ann said, been going around to all the merchants, wherever we can to get funding, and it's been phenomenal. A lot of them are telling us to come back the next year, and like I say, I appreciate, you know, the funding that you've done for us in such a short notice. Just like Ann said, helped us out. Not only that, you know, all of our people that are on board, you know, they are showing us their talent and their time. You know, that takes a lot from their normal life. That's special, you know. So I just appreciate what you guys can do for us, and it's a good group, not a good group to belong to, but when people need it, we're there for them. And it's just not in Ellis County, it's in the surrounding counties.
That is one question I had, Neil, maybe one of you can answer. How many of the outlying counties also have you reached out to, just as far as people coming back to your group and different things? Is it like a 3-county area, or is it?
Well, there's, go ahead.
The word is out there. We have the notice of our meetings and things like that in the local surrounding papers.
Okay.
We have wanted to concentrate on Hayes and Ellis County people. That's our main focus. We do have one outreach group in Hoxie.
Okay.
And they are making a contribution to us for our coming out there. And as we gain more people and more interest, and we've had some inquiries from surrounding counties, we will be talking to them and exploring what it will take. Right now, I'm the only staff person, and if I may be on the road, but that's up to the board of directors, and to work with the other various people if I go out and do these kinds of things for other counties. But right now, our main emphasis is on awareness is our big. We want to grow, and awareness for people in Ellis County to take advantage of our services is most important.
Thank you. Dustin, any questions for Neil? Or?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple questions. You know, first of all, this is, you know, just a great organization. I think that anybody that took a look at what you guys do would understand that there's obviously a need that's going to be out there. And it's not necessarily a concern with just your organization, but, you know, I noticed that, you know, as of last year, you guys were connected to and paid the salary paid for by the First Presbyterian Church. So, and this may not be a question, more of a suggestion, is if you've looked at the Ellis County Ministerial Alliance for some of this stuff. One of my biggest concerns about government funding of a lot of the type of organizations that we're talking about for outside funding is the change in a tax versus a donation. And those donations, it's why I think we keep harping on it. I think that anybody who has been successful in life and has extra money to give should look at this list of organizations that we're funding and really consider a donation to them. I love the idea of funding through church organizations. You know, the main reason for that is I feel like that's coming from a point of love. It's not from coercion. It's great because it really does tie into the people who give, actually caring about the organization and becoming a part of its success. But I understand with you guys it might be as tough as anybody in your beginning years of this transition. So if you guys could speak to that, you know. It could just be a funding thing for the Presbyterian Church and stuff, but have you reached out to the other churches within Ellis County and talked to them about help, whether it be with your fundraiser or because sometimes that's the best way they feel like they can multiply dollars into a fundraiser, or just simply a donation?
Well, I will respond to that, having been on the outreach staff of the First Presbyterian Church. The churches are all are hurting a lot. Yes, we have reached out to the churches. We will be continuing to reach out to the Ministerial Alliance as well. One of the changes that has happened since the First Presbyterian Church told us that they would no longer be able to support my salary or my benefits is that we now are community-based, And so we are no longer faith-based, so that has some kind of give and take. And to be quite honest, I don't know, Neil probably in his connections that he's made, I think the fact that it is community-based has raised the interest and involvement of a lot of people in the community, rather than saying, well, it's supported by the church. The people go, oh, well, the church is paying for it, so we don't have to. We, I think, have seen an increase because we're no longer supported by the church. It's no longer their mission. And the Ministerial Alliance supports us, but they also have to support the people in their congregations, and some of them are really strapped for that because of the demographics in our communities. So I think to me, it's been a positive that you...
Just to kind of help answer that question, Dustin, I've been visiting a lot of, and I'm not showing no favoritism, but Knights of Columbus, and I've been, going all over with them and how supportive, and just all the other merchants.
We never got donations from them in the past,
yeah.
and we now are.
You know, it's great.
visiting a bunch of them.
I'm a member of the Knights of Columbus, and a lot of people don't understand how the Knights of Columbus was formed by Father McGivney, and you know, it ties into the situation that you guys are trying to help with, and that is they saw a huge need for widows of Irish Catholics in the eastern part of our country when they were doing some of the most dangerous jobs imaginable, with no such thing as life insurance available to them. And when they went, they left a lot of widows. And because they were Catholic families, a lot of children as well. So, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, you see a fundamental transformation of society. And I always want to make sure that, you know, we understand the difference of tax versus charity, and how charity, it really ties into loving and caring of the person and people that you're willing to give to. So. And
I think the response we've seen, you know, like I said, we may not get huge amounts but the response that we've seen of even, you know, $25, $50, that's wonderful sign of charity, and we want to continue that. We want the community to really know about us, be aware, and support us. And we do have both men and women in all of our groups, so okay. We're pleased that men are also starting to be able to come out and take advantage of, you know, because it's hard to go back to work and be productive when you've lost a child. I mean, you know, even a week is nothing. And it can go on, each one is different. But knowing you're not alone by participating with other people who have been in similar situations makes a lot of difference.
That's a big difference.
Butch, any questions?
No, I have no questions, Neil.
And out of all the councils, Dustin, and I've seen a lot of people, if I hadn't known the individual that had lost a child, nobody knew that this existed, this support group.
Right.
And at this time, I would like to thank Eagle and Hayes Daily. They helped us out, and they're still helping us out to get this out amongst the public, so.
That's great.
Thank you.
We hope to support birth to death.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you all. Grow Hayes. We have a cheering section in the back row.
They stayed through the whole thing.
They did. The one young lady who's going to be a cheerleader back in town.
Well, I'm Doug Williams. I'm the executive director of Grow Hayes. Thank you for allowing me to bring up the rear. And I want to keep it brief because it's been a long evening for you already, and I don't think you're done even after this. So I think you're all familiar, at least at some level, with the organization of Grow Hayes, formerly the Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development. We've had some major changes in the last 12 to 18 months. We reduced our board size from 25 to 13. We changed directors, we changed locations, a lot of changes. But our mission has stayed the same, which is business creation, business retention and expansion, and business recruitment. And I might turn that another way. What it boils down to is growing the tax base. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're here for. And as I look at the issues facing Ellis County, and I realize they're substantial, the most productive method of solving these problems is absolutely growing the tax base, increasing taxes, sales tax, while they may be necessary, cutting expenses, I realize they may be necessary. Growing the tax base is the best overall long-term solution by far. We requested no funding in 2018 and 2019. Prior to that, and the information you have, you can see that we were funded at various levels over the years by the county. And our challenge today is no different than yours. It's economic sustainability. While we get some private funding, it's not sufficient to fund the organization. We have been spending reserves, a familiar refrain as you have faced, but we're at that point where that doesn't work anymore. So we have to find additional funding. The vast majority of economic development organizations, actually all, depend almost entirely on public funding. It's a interest that is best handled by the public at large, as opposed to individual private donors, typically. And so that's where we are. If you look at our peer communities, if you look at Ford County or Finney County, two communities that I think most people look at have been very successful in their economic development efforts. Both significantly fund economic development at a far greater rate than we do locally and have locally. So that's why we've come back to the table and to request this funding. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Butch?
If you don't get this funding, what will happen to Grow Hayes?
Ultimately, we have sufficient funds to operate for the balance of 2019. Depending on how private donations and the city of Hayes, other public donations come in, that will last us some time into 2020. But long term, we will not be sustainable if we don't get public funding. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
Dustin?
Thanks, Doug. Couple questions. I actually formerly served on the Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development, and I was involved somewhat in the transition, the change up of the board. First question, how do you feel like the smaller board is functioning? I know you probably didn't get to see the big board, but you were still a member of the community, highly active. How do you feel about your board now and going forward with them and the setup that you have? Do you feel like you can be successful in that setup?
I absolutely do, Dustin. I think based on what I have been told about the prior board, this board is much more functional. It's engaged. You can see in the back of the room, which I neglected to introduce, but Karen Dreiling is the chair of our board. Mary Martin, professor at Fort Hays State, is a board member. Joseph Beckner in the back is a board member. Did I forget anybody? And they're very engaged. We have a good group. I'm very proud of what we've really been able to accomplish in the last 12 months. I think we've come a long, long ways. We have some very good programs going, and I'm encouraged by not only that, but by projects we're working on. And I would commend you all for the effort you put forth in the Northwest Business Corridor, because that's an important project for our community, and you all have had the foresight and willingness to invest in it. Phil, I know, spends a lot of time on it, and I am hopeful that we can bring that to fruition, because it'll make a big difference in our community.
One other thing that I'd like to add is I did recently get a chance to visit Finney County and see some of their economic development work. This is something that at the most micro level of government, we have to be aggressive about in terms of growing our tax base, like you said, especially in western Kansas, northwest Kansas, rural America in general. If you're not aggressive, if you're not growing, you're dying. And when you start dying, it just snowballs. It gets way worse. It looks like we have a decent economic outlook from some of the stuff that I've seen, but my thought for my fellow commissioners is that if we don't figure out a way to do some sort of funding for economic development in Ellis County, we're going to end up having to do it on our own with our own staff, and we kind of can see the money that they're asking for here. It's $50,000, I believe, is what you guys have requested this year.
That's correct.
We all know that that's basically one employee. And so sometimes you got to talk about the type of funding that you can give and how much return on it you get, and especially in the help that we're getting with the Northwest Business Corridor, those kind of things. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. I really appreciate the work that they do. I'm not on the board anymore. I don't want to request to be on the board anymore. I think keeping elected officials off the board is probably what I would warn you guys about, as we saw a little bit of problems with that in the past. And sometimes it's good to have an elected official, invite them to your meetings so that they can hear. But I would advise against having them have a vote or start pulling the strings of government funding for what should be done, because I think the business people in this community will effectively do that much better, and you guys will effectively do that much better without government intervention.
Well, whether on the board or not, we certainly welcome input from government officials, and want to be here to answer any questions you ever have. So open door policy, and definitely want your input on things.
Thank you for the job you're doing out there, Doug. We appreciate all your hard work also. I know you're working with Phil quite a bit, and we appreciate you guys working together and having a county-wide effort doing that, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Now to our regular agenda. Conditional use permit, 1908, Planning Commission Chair David McDaniel. And Mason Reuter, I'm sorry, Mason. And there went our nice crowd.
I scared him away, I'm sorry. Good evening, Commissioners. Mason Reuter, Environmental Planning Supervisor. With me tonight is David McDaniel, Joint Planning Commission Chair, to explain a little bit about the conditional use permit number 1908.
Good evening, gentlemen. This is my first appearance before the two new commissioners, and I'm glad to be here this evening in front of you.
Welcome.
To talk about the conditional use permit number 1908. This involves a Next Tech plan to put up an 85-foot telephone pole for a cellular site. You have the information in your packet, I believe, so I will be brief. This came before the Joint Planning Commission on May 22nd. All the people that were involved were present. All the paperwork that is involved that needed to be done has been completed. The site has been inspected. The landowners within 1,000 feet have all been notified. The protest period ended June 5th, and there were no protests for this plan. The action that we're asking for tonight is that you approve the conditional use permit. You approve it with some conditions. You disapprove the conditional use permit, or you jump it back to the Planning Commission. Questions?
I've already reviewed it. Fellow commissioners, have you had a chance to review it also? Any questions? I don't have any.
I just want to make a comment that there was a lot of discussion all the time about a term called NIMBY. It's not in my backyard.
Correct.
And I want to avoid that as much as we can in Ellis County, that we make it that we work together to do things that are helpful for everybody, whether it's utilities like this or any other thing. the more we can get away from that, the more our economy's ability to grow. So it was something that was brought up quite a bit at a conference I went to, and so I'm excited to see that there weren't any objections and that we can move forward with this.
No questions.
This time I'd ask for a motion to either approve or disapprove.
I move that we approve CUP 1908 to allow Nextech to place an 85-foot telephone pole for a cellular site at 323 Pfeiffer Avenue in rural Ellis County, as the zoning regulations have been followed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 22nd, 2019.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second that motion.
Further discussion, commissioners?
No?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Donna? Planning Commission appointments.
Thank you. One more thing while I have your attention.
Yes, sir.
I want you to know that the Joint Planning Commission is working on the Ellis County Comprehensive Plan every month at our meetings, and hopefully one of these days we'll have that before you.
I read that in your minutes, so thank you very much for pointing that out.
Thanks for your attention.
Yep, thanks for being here. Mason?
Good evening again, Commissioners. Mason Reuter, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Next item I have for you is the reappointment of 2 positions on the Joint Planning Commission. They're expiring at the end of June here on June 30th. David McDaniel has graciously stated he would like to be reappointed if the commission so chooses to. Brian Church, the other position open, has requested to not be reappointed, leaving an open appointment to the commission to approve, effective July 1st, excuse me. I guess with that, I'll open any questions.
Now, there's one person's name I'd like for you to add and talk to them in your spare time when you have a minute. That'd be Neil Younger from Munger, Kansas, if you'd like to talk to him about maybe serving on that.
Okay. Can do.
Not to put him on the spot, but I think he'd be a great representation, not only from Munger, but from the southern half of Ellis County.
Okay.
And Commissioners, do you have anyone else you'd like to also suggest to Mason to talk to? I'd ask that you'd give them names also.
Keep that in mind.
Okay,
All right. I'll speak to him.
thank you.
Thank you.
Need a motion?
Yep.
Yes, we do. to
Yeah.
approve.
Yeah, you do.
Motion to approve David.
Dave McDaniel's term would expire at the end of June, so in order to keep him on board before your next meeting, you
And then for the next meeting, if anyone else has any other names other than
Yeah.
Neil's to add to the
Think on that.
list. Okay,
Okay, I move that David McDaniel be reappointed to a 3-year term on the Joint Planning Commission and open appointment to a new interested individual to the other 3-term effective July 1st, 2019.
thank you. We have a motion.
I second that.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0.
All right.
Osborne, thank you very much, Mason, sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, thank you very much for being here this evening, and if you have any questions for us later on, let us know.
Will do.
Looks like
I
he's
got one more
another
for you.
one.
Huh?
He's got another one, looks like.
Yep, go ahead.
All righty.
Osborne County.
This is the last one, I swear.
There you
Okay.
go.
Good evening, Commissioners, again. Mason Reuter, Environmental Planning Supervisor. We have been approached by Osborne County, who was directed by KDHE to join a regional household hazardous waste program. We service additional counties in their area, so they requested to join ours. The process begins with us asking for your permission to go ahead and go forward with adding them to our regional program. If you allow them to continue, we take that back to the 13 board county, including us. They will have to unanimously approve them to join, and then it will go to Osborne County's county commission to join us, and then there will be an interlocal agreement between Ellis County and Osborne County to join the regional HHW program. After speaking with them, we have noticed that the waste generated by them wouldn't increase total shipping costs for us much at all, but it would bring in additional revenue for admin fees and then the buy-in costs to use the trailer, purchase equipment and whatnot. So that $2,000 would be for the first year of them buying in, and then the additional admin fee of $600. Additional $600 per year.
Scare me over there, Phil. Mason, will that $2,000, that'll cover it, you're sure? I mean, as far as revenue coming in,
That'll cover the buy-in. We are looking at possibly increasing our fees.
Okay.
Just because the cost of doing the shipments and whatnot is always going up, and last time we raised it, it went up, I think, $100.
Okay.
$500 to $600. So we're gonna look and see what additional raising of the fees could do and help us out with covering, because we cover the equipment cost for masks, glasses, suits, and the general trailer maintenance after the initial buy-in.
Okay. Questions? None?
No, thanks, Mason. I'm sure you'll keep a close eye on that, make sure that we're charging the proper amount, not too much, not too little.
Right.
I know you'll do a good job of that.
No questions.
I might ask for a motion.
I move that we approve allowing Household Hazardous Waste Regional Director Mason Reuter to begin the process of adding Osborne County to the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program, subject to the unanimous approval of the counties currently involved in the program and by the Osborne County Board of Commissioners.
I'll second that motion.
Donna, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
Thank you again,
Commissioners.
Mason.
Thanks.
Acceptance of Craft Grant, Health Services Director Carrie McHugh.
Good evening, County Clerk Maskus and gentlemen. I'm here tonight, Carrie McHugh, Ellis County Health Services. I'm here tonight to ask for us to accept a grant that we being Ellis County EMS applied for back in December. It's an annual grant put on by the Board of EMS. They have approximately $400,000 that they buy equipment for services across the state. We've taken part in it and been awarded 2 previous grants, one for some portable radios and one for some ambulance cots. This year I applied, or last year, excuse me, at the end of the year, I applied for 7 of these mechanical CPR devices, and that is a number that would put 1 on each one of our trucks. Because of the amount of applications, we were only awarded 3, and in our initial grant proposal, and I included that in your packet, I suggested that we would have a 50% match of whatever we got. That 50% match, according to the Board of EMS, they'll pay $21,283.47, and we would pay $21,283.44. That does not put 1 on every one of our first out emergency trucks. So what I've asked for is the additional motion that I put in there, which would bring the total to $35,472.41. That would add a 4th one that we would be paying for completely ourselves. And that would put 1 on all of our frontline emergency response trucks. And then if that truck has to go to service, make sure it's pulled off and then it's available in that role again and put onto the truck that's filling in its role. So with that, I would ask for your approval. The money is in our CIP Fund 16. There is adequate funds there to do that. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to stand for them. One of the things I neglected to say, these mechanical devices provide much better CPR than anybody can. And so they're in place while we're moving down the road. It allows the technicians to be in, or the providers to be seated and seat belted and secured while the device is doing its thing. Then they can also pay attention to other things like medication administration, cardiac monitors, and things like that. So it has better patient outcomes and provider safety also attached to it.
Gary, thanks for applying for that grant and looking to take that money out of Fund 16. Very well presented, thank you. I think it's a good deal. Butch, any questions?
Yeah, Carrie, are these machines being used by other ambulances in our area?
There's really two devices out there. There's one made by the Zoll company, and then there's this one, which is made by Physio Control. And we did a beta test with both devices. Pros and cons in both. The crews like this one the best. We actually, when the other company's device came out several years ago, I'm talking 15 years ago, they asked us to be a beta test site for it too. But we've, like anything, you don't buy when it first comes out. You let them work the kinks out of those things. And so we've watched for years. Other services are using them, and those services are seeing positive results with patient outcomes. The more we see in cardiac arrest patients, the more we see the importance of good quality CPR and good quality and electrical intervention. So,
Is that a battery operated device?
yeah, and it comes with spare batteries.
Good. Yeah.
It will actually be tied into the electrical system. It'll be charged continuously on the truck through the electrical system when it's installed properly.
Anything?
I guess my question would be for my fellow commissioners and kind of how they feel. Obviously, we have an alternate motion here that's more spending. My initial thought was that we for sure use the grant funding and spend the money on that for the first three. And then, if we decide that we like those in the field and stuff, maybe present to us later about a purchase of another one. I don't know how you guys feel. Obviously, we just spent a hour and a half getting beat up about budget, so it's a little tough to spend. I know this is opposite. This isn't the same type of spending, but that was just my initial feeling on it, was at least use the grant funding match.
Well, when it comes to CPR, if you ever participated in CPR, it can wear you out real fast. As a nurse, I've had to do it, and to sustain it for more than a few minutes is really, really tough. If Carrie said if we could get 4 of them, it puts one on every frontline ambulance. Is that correct?
Correct.
And that device just might make a difference, and we don't know which one of us might want to use that ambulance.
I know when I went through Carrie's class, through the CPR class that was down at the law enforcement center, I had no idea how tiring that was after like 5 minutes. I mean, I thought I was in halfway decent shape till I found out how good shape I really wasn't in. But it was tough.
I'll just tell you we would probably deploy one in the outstations, one in Ellis, one in Victoria, if we just had the 3, and the third one would be here. We would have to figure out a way to make it available for both trucks, because if we put it on the first truck, then invariably it's going to be there when the second truck needs it. So ultimately, it'd be more efficient for us if we had one on each of the frontline trucks. But we serve at your pleasure.
And this is a life-saving issue. There's no question about it.
Motion by either one?
I move that the Ellis County Commission approve Ellis County EMS to accept the fiscal year 2019 Kansas Board of EMF craft grant with the understanding that 50% of the purchase, $21,283.44, will be made from Fund 16, plus the additional purchase of a 4th Lucas device outside the craft grant, totally $35,472.41 to be paid from Fund 16.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Further discussion, commissioners? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you,
Thank
Carrie.
you. If there's no other questions, I'll get out of here because you've had a long night.
Bill Ring. Award a bid for asphalt hold-in-place recycling.
Evening, Commissioners. Bill Ring, Public Works Director. Before you have tonight something that we started 2 paving seasons ago, doing what we call cold-in-place recycling, where they come in with a large milling machine. They take off approximately 4 inches of asphalt, run it through a hopper, they lay it out, they windrow it out the back, they rejuvenate it with oil. We lay it back down and roll it back in place. It's been fairly successful so far. We've done approximately 17 miles of that in the last 2 paving seasons. So this year, again, taking budget concerns and costs into effect, we added an option into the bid where we can, and it's all in your packet, but instead of going with 4-inch, there may be some paved road that are candidates that need to be rejuvenated but don't need as much done, where we could do 2 inches or 3 inches and thereby lowering the cost per square yard. And that's all laid out on the first page in your packet where it has the minutes, that the actual 4-inch would be $5.88, but we could bring it down to $4.13 should we have a candidate. And we've been working with the contractor. There is also, just for the new commissioners, there's only one person that does this. So they're based out of Chicago, and they have an office in Salina. But so they basically take care of, Kansas, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming. So when we bid it out, we only got 1 response back for it. So if we were to, in the financial impact, that would be the total amount if we would choose to do all the square yards we've estimated that need to be done and at a 4-inch level. So that would be at the high end. And if we, depending on the way the season goes, because just like was brought out tonight numerous times, the weather has put a pinch on Road and Bridge. So we are way behind, unfortunately. Road damage continues, as it did this past weekend.
Butch, any questions for Bill?
No, it's just, it's a lot of money for 5 miles.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But as
I was out there last year and they were doing it. It's
Mhm.
quite a process, and
Yeah.
and if they had a place that they had an oops, they was very good to come right back and fix it. And
Mhm.
I met with them out at the county shop one morning with Bill and Kurt and staff, and very good at what they do.
Mhm.
And it seems to work.
when you, just for Commissioner Slyer, we had some people, residents request last year, they were looking about possibly getting some paving done. And to put a 4-inch hot mix down was basically almost just under $1 million a mile.
Mhm.
So that's why we've chosen this route, to try to get longevity out of the roads as well as stretch our budget dollars as far as we can. And again, that's why we added the options. We met with the contractor early this year before we, to talk about what other options do we have. Because if you see that it went up very little, the per dollar, per yard cost was, it only increased a minimal amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions, Dustin?
So basically with this motion, Bill, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, you guys are gonna kind of go through the road project and see which ones you think may need a 4-inch, and less. And
We've
go
pretty
this-
much done that.
Got it figured out, okay.
But we also, once they get out there and they do what we call core sampling, where they'll go out and they'll actually core a section of road
Yep.
about 4-inch diameter, and then they'll go down depending, 6, 8 inches. And with those samples, we can also get a better look at what the base is looking like underneath.
Yeah, and this is probably a stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I mean, this is an incredibly expensive piece of machinery, if I'm hearing you right, as far as only one person owning it in the Midwest and getting us a bid.
Yes.
Okay.
It more than rivals some of the things we've purchased.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. If you'd see it, it's pretty impressive.
Okay. That's sufficient for me.
Would you like to make a motion?
I move the commission approve the bid for cold in-place recycling from the Coughlin Company, Salina, Kansas, for approximately 7,400 square yards and any additional roadways at the same bid price.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second the motion.
Well, Donna, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. County Councilor, Mr. Bill Jeter.
County Councilor Bill Jeter, I do not have a report, but I would request a 10-minute executive session. 15? Okay.
I thought that's what we did, wasn't it? 15?
Fine.
We'll do 15, just in case. Okay. 15. County Administrator Report, Philip Smith-Haynes.
County Administrator Philip Smith-Haynes, I have no report this evening.
County Commission Reports. Dustin.
The only report that I guess I will have to give is just a few things that came to mind here tonight. You know, this was obviously a tough meeting for us. We just heard from a lot of really good funding, good organizations that are needing some funding from us. And I really appreciate working with you guys on trying to figure out this problem as we move forward. One thing that came to mind, it was something that I reported on in one of my first meetings, and it was a quote by Calvin Coolidge, and it just kept coming to mind tonight as we heard these requests. And from our perspective, it means that we have to make hard decisions, which sometimes in government the hard decisions have to come at some point, or it just continues to spiral out of control. But the quote was from Calvin Coolidge, and it was, there's no dignity quite so impressive and no independence quite so important as living within your means. And I think that's what we're prepared to do over the next couple of years together, and I'm excited to work that way with you. I also would like to hammer home the idea that a lot of these organizations need funding, and they're very noble organizations, and if you happen to have the means to help them out, I think that there's so much more fulfillment in the things that I give than the taxes I pay. So, but that's all I have to report on.
Thanks, Dustin. Butch, anything?
No report.
I just had one Workforce One meeting, and it was by a conference call, and unfortunately, there's only 3 of us that showed up on the conference call, so the meeting lasted about less than 30 seconds. We didn't have a quorum, so it was over. So we're going to try again next week, I guess. So with that, would one of you please make a motion to go into executive session? We'll go with Bill Jeter if he said 10 minutes. I think if we can hammer it out in 10, he can talk fast, I guess.
Okay, I'd make a motion, we go into executive session for the acquisition of real estate for the expansion of the landfill. Included would be the board, Administrator Phil, Councilor Jeter, and Bill Ring for 10 minutes.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you all. Right up. Donna. Oh, God bless you all.
And they cleared out.
There they were going. No action. And we'll see you all on Monday. Huh?
It's Monday.
Well,
Wednesday.
for the special. Yes, Wednesday at 8 a.m., I believe, right here?
Wednesday at,
Wednesday, 8 a.m.
yep.
Thank you all for coming, being patient, and staying for 3 hours and 12 minutes, and we'll adjourn at 8:12.
Yep.
8:11, whatever you want to put down. I don't care at this point.